the exact details of how it was developed, but it's based on experimental observations. The implications of the size effect are actually very significant. You mentioned a raft foundation, or sometimes we call it a mat foundation. Obviously, that's a very thick element, and the size effect factor becomes quite severe for a very deep element. It's much less than 1, requiring currently developing a code interpretation and perhaps revised rules for very thick foundation elements. Subcommittees E and F. F is the foundation subcommittee, and E I mentioned was the shear moment and torsional strength subcommittee. Looking closely at the size effect for deep foundations, and we may put a cap or a limit on the size effect factor, so that for very deep foundations like raft foundations, it doesn't become. Does that answer your question?
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. We have very limited time, but I see that there is one more question in Zoom, but perhaps this will be the last question for today, for this session, before we close it, if you're okay with that. So the last question is from Muhammad Fauzi Darmawan. How can we evaluate the floor vibration during the design process of a building? Can we assign constraint at all of the degree of freedoms except the vertical translation? Then we conduct model analysis to see the natural frequency of the slab. That's the question. And
I'm so glad you asked this question, because this is, I spend about 50% of my work is on floor vibrations. So, but there's a couple very specific elements in this question, and then there's a more general question. So I'll try to answer quickly because I know. But when looking at the design of a new building, and you want to understand the floor vibration characteristics, yes, a finite element model is a very good way to do that. You may, a couple things you may wish to do is perhaps increase the expected concrete strength, F prime C in ACI terminology, by some amount, maybe 0.3 or 0.4, to account for the actual strength that you think will be in the floor, because that changes the modulus of elasticity E, which will affect the vibration response of the floor. So that's one thing you might want to do. But you also noted that the fixing the vertical translation mode of a floor. So typically what we do is model an entire floor plate. We do fix the vertical translation at each column or wall, and then perform a modal analysis to get the natural frequencies. And that tells you a lot about the slab, the floor. I will also say, though, that there are even better finite element methods available that have to do with modal superposition. And I don't want to create an advertisement, but I will say that what I have used is the software RAM Concept, which analyzes concrete floors. And the very nice thing about RAM Concept, and the only reason I'm mentioning it, it is the only widely available software that I know of that will perform this modal superposition analysis, which is, I think, far superior to some other methods. So I'm not advertising that software. I just want to mention that this method, and if you do research into, say, the user's manual for RAM Concept, you'll see the references to the original research that was done to develop the method. And you might want to explore that. I think it's probably the best way to analyze floor vibrations.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy, for the kind answer. I hope it answers your question. So perhaps with this, I would like to close the session today with Andrew Taylor. Please give a big applause for him. And I will return the mic back to our MC.
Thank you.
Budini.
Terima kasih Ibu Prasanti, and thank you for Mr. Taylor. Bapak dan Ibu, kita akan waktunya break selama 15 menit. Kami persilahkan Bapak untuk menikmati kopi dan teh serta makanan yang telah disediakan. Kita akan kembali lagi pada pukul 10.45. Untuk itu kami persilahkan. Terima kasih.